There you are. Here I am to explain, to teach, and create again. Hello, 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 and all those out there and all the ships at sea right now. um, this is just a quick demo for mainly Renee, but anybody who watches it will get a few good pointers out of it. First of all, this is a scoring knife, and I sent one to Renee that had just one little bit on it. But first thing about scoring knives is you listen for a scratch. You use your thumb, you press it between the knife and the piece of glass, and you'll get that scratch mark going on. Then you take your tongue to your finger, wet it, put it to where you scratched it. Score is at 12 o'clock. Your thumbs are at 6 o'clock, and you push and snap away. Okay? I'll do it one more time. Score. You listen for that scratch. You look for it, make sure it's there. Then you wet it. 12, 6, snap. Boom. And yes, even with bigger pieces and pieces of tubing. Here's a piece of tubing. Okay? Same idea. You hear the scratch. You wet it and push away. Okay? Now, that's scoring knife 101. Next thing that I was noticing was control. And I mentioned it to you in a quick message, but here's the idea. You have a flame, and with that flame, you have lots of different parts of that flame going on. And what you're looking for is your sweet spot. Now, I noticed one time that you took a chunk of glass, and this is what you can do when you got just a chunk of glass that you want to melt up and heat up, but you got to do it slowly, just like I'm doing right here now. It's not in the flame, but it's close to the flame. And I heat up the tip of the punte. And I touch it too, get that, see, that's getting it warm right there. That, even though it's not in the flame, it's getting it warm. And then you can start warming it in slightly, and then just touch it too. Come back a little bit. And that should do you for now. That's all you need, is just a temporary. Okay? Now, on the other end, what you're looking for is that orange color. And then, once it starts getting that orange color, you can touch it too. And now you're going to play with it more or less. The flame is not really on top of the glass you're working with, but sort of behind it, and bathe it just a little bit. And as you're bathing it, it's keeping the glass warm and enough, and you're tugging on the one on your left side to pull it out slightly, but you're not, you're not trying to pull them apart fast. You're just trying to tug slightly to get a thinner mass than what you're working with, okay? And then you're going to work down the rod. And even if you worked with that thick piece of tubing for a short period of time, that would have been okay. I think you got to learn to work with whatever you got. I know I make it look easy. I've only been doing this since 1982, okay? But you can learn it too. That's the coolest thing. It's there. Oh, I noticed another thing while you were showing me your video. There is many parts of your brain that have to work together when you, oops, see? That many parts of your brain that have to work together when you're doing glass. You have a mathematical mind, you have an artistic mind, you have a scientific mind, and all function properly with a lot of things. In other words, your scientific mind knows that when something's hot, you don't touch it, or it's hot, it's just hot and you need to work with it or whatever when it comes to glass. See, now what you need to do is meld those parts of your brain together, your mathematical mind, your analytical mind. And here's another thing I saw you doing. I'm going to demonstrate on a thinner piece of glass because it'll give me a better idea. And that's the glass that I just took out of the flame. But I'll work with it anyway. It's warm. It's not enough to melt and burn me. I mean, burn my fingers. It's just enough to be warm. Okay? What you were doing, you need to be heating up just the tip and start rolling it and tilting it downward. Tilting it downward like so. So it's sort of rolling into itself. And keep spinning it. That's another thing that you're having problems with is that three-dimensional object. You catch yourself and you start doing it again. And I mean, you do it and then you catch yourself and stop and do it, and then you catch yourself and start doing, where you're spinning it again. But it is a three-dimensional object and you have to continually heat and melt the whole piece to keep it warm and fuzzy and doing what you need it to do. Now, what I said in the message was that your flame is a little bit too hot for what you're working, but you can still work around it if you work the tip, just the tip. So you're heating up all over and it's starting to flump like this when you're working it. But if you heated just the tip and let it bathe to the back end and tilt it downward, you make a round ball every time. You're trying to heat up in front, not all of it all at once, okay? Now, I also noticed when you did this, which was good, I love the way you played with that and you squoze it like so. Make something like that into an icicle, like so. You ready? You heat it up, the whole thing, and you're going to do two things. You're going to pull it out and you're going to start twisting, one a little bit faster than the other on one hand than the other. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And start twisting and start pulling. And there you go. And then you can come back and do a real quick loop. Okay. Icicles. Christmas is coming. Ho, ho, ho. I also liked when you made your amoeba / back scratcher. I'll show you something real quick on that. And then I have to go because it's getting close to time for me to go to work. But I wanted to do this real quick video and explain a few things to you while it's fresh on my mind. It was a very unique video, and I'm glad that you had the foresight to try to send it to me so that you could, you weren't stressed out in your own little, where people had to be watching you and that it was on your own time and a few things happening at once. Okay. Again, you see what I'm doing? Instead of heating up, you're heating up the whole piece of glass rod and it starts getting a little bit out of your hand and you can't quite control it all. But if you're heating up just the tip of it and letting the flame backlash, you're having to learn where your sweet spot is in the flame. That is the fun part. Once you learn where your sweet spot and glass will melt for the best for you is where you got to be. Okay? Now this is what you did. You made your little thing like so. But I also noticed that when you started pulling out the fingers, you were heating it up in one spot, like over here, and trying to pull out over here. And it wasn't working because you weren't heating up the right spot. Like so. You just got to get that spot in that warm area and pull. Okay? Touch and pull. Just the spot that you want to pull out, nothing else. and you'll start to see it. I notice also that you're working out in the sun. That's not a bad thing, but when you get in your shaded in a roofed in area where you've got the same type of lighting all the time, you'll notice also a big difference in your glass work compared to living at night to day, and so on and so forth. Now, the next thing you tried to do was melt it back down into a blob. And again, you are heating up the whole piece. What you need to start to do is heat up the front end and let it start to round in, just like I'm doing here. Not the whole piece, just the front end until it starts, and you'll start to see it. It'll start to round in and start to do its number. Okay, and there you go. See, it's all sort of melting into itself like it should. But you're trying to heat up and melt the whole thing, and you only need to melt a little bit at a time until it all becomes nice and melted. See there? And again, also, the more you play with the same piece of glass, the more stress you're putting into that piece of glass. And even though you might get it all nice and round, there might be a little bubble or stress that you put into it that you're not seeing. And that's why some of your glass is cracking. You see there? I'm not working the back end yet, and it's still becoming nice and round. Oops, you can't see that because of the glare. I've got to get that sunshade back. I haven't been using it, and I need to, okay? Okay. But there it is. It's getting nice and round again. It's sort of flat and oval at the moment, but warp. And then I start to tilt downward. Okay. There it goes. And there we are. It's not perfectly round yet, but it's round and round. With that, there was the other things that you're working on, but at this point, I don't have time to go into some of the rest of that. But that is a few pointers that I noticed really off the bat. You got to heat up just one spot at a time and round it and keep spinning. It's very important. What you should do also, when you're not in front of the torch and you want to practice, you take a pen, you take a pencil, you take a rod or whatever, and this is what I want to catch yourself doing. Just rolling it back and forth, or even where you're doing this number. Back, where it's continually going around in a circle there. And I've even gotten to the point where I can do thumb, the pinky, the pointer, and the other finger right next to it, where I can be going just like that. It's sort of walking itself as we work. Okay? That's what I want to catch you doing. You take a pencil and you keep rolling, and that's going to exercise those muscles in your fingers. Exercise the muscles in the fingers to get that thing spinning, because you need to keep it going round all the time. Even if you're doing back and forth like this, you've got to make sure you're getting it all the way around. It's very important. So I, when you got a pencil in your hand, I want it to see it spinning. There you go. Okay. Anybody who wants to learn about glass blowing 101, these are simple, easy tasks. And yes, you've got to learn them. But once you get them under your belt, you'll get there. And you'll get there even faster by not fighting your scientific, mathematical, and artistic mind. You've got to sort of bring them. You got to bring them all together so that they work together, so that your ideas and your emotions. That's another thing you talked about, how your emotions affect your glass. Yes, I once was mad at my brother And from that, I went to my torch and made this gnarly looking tree. I mean, not for not, well, I'll show him and put and made this gnarly looking tree and set it out on my table the next day, and somebody bought it for $15. And I thought to myself, great therapy. It does work. With that, got to go. Hope you enjoyed today's little quick show. Thank you for being there, people. And without you, I'd still go on. But it's not as fun without knowing that I'm helping other people along the way. As always, enjoy your day.